Greetings to all fans of good movies. In this video, I'm going to tell you about 2001 romantic drama, Sweet November.
Give me my shirt and pants back.
What? It's clothes.
Film first introduces us to one of the main characters, Nelson Moss, a successful advertising executive who lives and breathes his work. From the moment he wakes up, he's pacing around his apartment, rehearsing various ad slogans out loud, completely ignoring his girlfriend. Due to his busy schedule, Nelson is once again forced to skip a meeting with her parents.
This is important to me.
This account is very important to me.
Recently, our character was assigned a major project at work, and the final presentation to the client is just a few days away. In the midst of this, he suddenly remembers that he has a driver's license renewal test scheduled for today, something he cannot miss. Having forgotten about it, Nelson arrives unprepared. During the test, he turns to the girl sitting next to him and asks for help, inadvertently getting her in trouble. The strict examiner notices their interaction and kicks girl out of the class.
You may retake the test in 30 days.
Great. Guess I'm going. Walking.
The two meet again in the parking lot. Feeling guilty, Nelson offers her a month's salary as compensation and hands her his business card. Girl takes his contact information and gets off his car. Later that evening, Nelson receives a strange call from his concierge. It's Sarah, the girl from the test, who has come to his apartment. During their conversation, she asks Nelson to be her personal driver as a way to make up for his mistake. When he refuses, she starts shouting insults, embarrassing him in front of his neighbors.
You keep flashing everybody in this building!
Hey, what are you, nuts?
Well, I just want to ride.
In the next scene, we see the two of them driving in Nelson's car. When they arrive at their destination, Sarah puts on a wig and confesses that she plans to commit a robbery. Before she leaves, she takes car keys so Nelson can't drive away. A few minutes later, the building's alarm goes off, and Sarah returns carrying a large bag. It turns out she broke into a research institute to rescue two puppies that were about to be used in experiments. Back at her place, Sarah asks Nelson to fulfill one last request: come up to her apartment and have a cup of hot chocolate. Reluctantly, Nelson agrees. During their time together, Sarah has observed our character closely and concludes that he's a miserable workaholic. She offers him a deal. He moves in with her for 1 month, completely disconnects from his job, and in return, she'll help him resolve his emotional issues and bring joy back into his life.
October's almost over. We can start 1st of November.
Nelson finds Sarah's proposal completely absurd. He calls her crazy and threatens to call the police if she ever shows up at his place again. The day of the presentation arrives. Nelson passionately and confidently pitches his project to the client, certain that it will be approved. But to everyone's surprise, for the first time in his career, he receives a harsh rejection. Unwilling to accept defeat, Nelson lashes out at the important client, forcing the agency's director to fire him on the spot. When upset Guy gets home, his girlfriend also breaks up with him. This turns out to be one of the worst days of his life. That evening, his peace is once again disturbed by concierge. Through him, Sarah sent our character a large box.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Returning the gift, Nelson tells Sarah about his terrible day, and she urges him to reconsider her offer. After all, he's now alone and unemployed, so he has nothing left to lose. Standing outside in the rain, beauty finally convinces him. They return to her place and spend their first night together. The next morning, Nelson immediately calls his assistant, asking to set up a meeting with the head of a major advertising agency. He clearly hasn't taken Sarah's offer seriously and plans to leave. Seeing this, girl takes his phone and informs him that she's already given his clothes away to the poor. In her view, the first step in Nelson's rehabilitation is to rid him of his strict wardrobe, his phone, and even his wristwatch. Their conversation is interrupted by a neighbor who walks in unannounced. Man calmly pours himself a cup of coffee and, as if nothing's out of the ordinary, starts flirting with Sarah. For Nelson, this is the last straw. Furious, he storms out of the house. But even outside, strange things continue to happen. Everyone around him seems to know that Sarah changes boyfriends every month and finds it completely normal. Even a local kid, upon seeing Nelson, immediately guesses who he is.
You November.
Get a life.
All of this seems utterly insane for our character. He can't understand why Girl leads such an unusual life. Sarah simply tells him that she has a good reason and then asks him to give her the most valuable thing he has, his time. Nelson reluctantly agrees to spend just one day with her. Entire next day, the two of them spend together. Sarah shows Nelson, through her own example, that life isn't just about working for profit. There are many things one can do simply for the joy of it, whether it's walking dogs or running a business. She also shares stories about her past, the men she was with previously, and how she helped them. Nelson is most curious about why she only dates someone for a month. Sarah explains that this is the perfect amount of time for a successful rehabilitation without any painful complications. Finally, day comes to an end, and it's time for our character to leave. But for the first time, Sarah doesn't try to stop him. She's confident that once Nelson is back alone in his dull apartment, he'll want to return to her on his own. Next day, they go together to watch a toy yacht race where Sarah's neighbor, a boy named Ebner, is competing. His yacht stands out because he built it himself. Ebner is an orphan. Before the race starts, other kids mock his creation, but Nelson defends him and boosts his confidence. During race, he also helps Boy secure first place by using a toy submarine to eliminate his competitors.
I guess I won.
This event gave our character a brief sense of being a father. According to Sarah, he did well with the task, albeit in his own way. Later, while alone, they have a heart-to-heart conversation. After his parents' death, Nelson couldn't stay in the family home and moved to the city. As a child, he dreamed of becoming a famous singer, but as an adult, he chose a different career path focused on ambition.
One day you'll sing for me, right?
The next day, Sarah suggests visiting Nelson's family home. Her support helps him finally say goodbye to unpleasant memories. From that moment on, they spend all their time together, enjoying each other's company and going out for walks. One day, their idyllic life is interrupted again by the neighbor who invites them to a festive dinner. When they arrive at his home, Nelson is stunned to see the man dressed up and with his boyfriend. Not wanting to engage in conversation, Nelson quickly retreats to another room to watch TV. During a commercial break, he is joined by Chaz, who starts discussing advertising with him in a professional manner.
I've got a day job as well, you know. Oh my God, you're Chess Watley.
Chaz turns out to be a well-known advertising agent who took over the large account that our character had failed earlier. This realization helps Nelson understand that to be successful in their field, it's not necessary to appear impressive, but you just need to be yourself. During the dinner, Sarah receives a distressing phone call from her sister, causing her to cut the evening short. The beauty's condition visibly worsens, but she tries to stay upbeat, telling Nelson she just has a headache. Next morning, Nelson is preparing for a meeting with the director of a major advertising agency. His decision deeply upsets Sarah, as November isn't over yet, and he's already looking for a job despite their agreement.
We've got a couple of great clients in our hip pockets, so we come to you fully loaded.
I want to be your full-time commitment.
Our character had once dreamed of getting this position, but the time spent with Sarah completely changed his attitude towards life. The agency director turns out to be a terrible person who doesn't value his employees. Realizing this, Nelson rejects the offer, much to his assistant's surprise. After meeting, he goes straight to Sarah to apologize. Unfortunately, Sarah's condition continues to deteriorate. She finds it increasingly difficult to hide her illness. Nelson, on the other hand, is experiencing the best period of his life. He confesses this to Sarah and proposes to her. In tears, Girl declines, and our character finally learns bitter truth. At that moment, Beauty loses consciousness. A few years ago, Sarah was diagnosed with brain cancer but refused treatment. She chose to spend her remaining time outside of hospitals and away from her family's pity. Sarah lived by her own rules, trying not to burden anyone with her illness, which is why she had to frequently change boyfriends. Nelson was the only one who learned her secret, which led her to end their relationship early. On Thanksgiving Day, Nelson unexpectedly shows up at Girl's apartment with a large bag. He puts on a touching performance, showing his affection through symbolic gifts, and ends with the promised song at a music bar. Returning home, Sarah also finds her apartment decorated with November calendars.
Every month is November, Sarah. And I love you every day.
Following week, they spend all their time together, but Sarah still decides to go through with her plan. On the morning of December 1st, she reveals an unexpected fact to Nelson. She decided to move into her parents' house, so he won't witness her suffering. Girl believes this will preserve their ideal relationship and ensure he remembers her as she is, young and beauty. During their farewell, they declare their love for each other before parting ways forever. Thank you to everyone who watched until the end. Share your thoughts on the film in the comments below.